This episode, well, you've been to the local building supply, you have purchased a bunch of materials, and now you have the fun job of getting it all to the house. We're going to talk about how to safely transport materials. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation. This edition is entitled Safely Transporting Materials. To help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy, John. John, what has John been doing this week?
Well, this week I had worked on the downspout issue, and at a house where the house was just the water running off, and so it was totally blocked, and I had to go buy a whole bunch of stuff for this project, hose, the drain tile, all kinds of stuff I was doing. I mean, I drive an SUV, and so I didn't have a whole lot of space to put stuff, so I had to tie it down on the car, which kind of leads into what we've, what our show is this week, because I when I was thinking about it, it brought up a whole bunch of, visions in my head of how people do this stuff.
So it's always one of my pet peeves when you're driving down the road and you see somebody that's moving or whatever. They've got a mattress strapped to the top of their Tercel, right? Their Toyota Tercel. I'm picking on Tercels, but they've got a mattress tied to the top of their car, right? And it's literally tied with like twine. And they got their hands out the window and they're hanging on, right? So so it's like, it's kind of crazy. And I always sit there and go, I think I want to get away from being behind this guy, right?
Well, and you should, because as I was doing a little research here, and I ran across a 2012 study conducted by the GAO, it's a government accounting office. They found 51,000 crashes occur each year from cars that were struck by improperly secured objects flying off moving cars or that hit highway debris, resulting in 10,000 injuries and 440 deaths. So, when you think about the amount of potential that that you are carrying on the outside of your car in terms of the force that is exerted, on something like that, and they give you a little example here. At 55 miles an hour, a 20-pound object that falls from a vehicle will strike with an impact of half a ton. So it doesn't take much, to really make a lot of damage happen.
Right. Well, and John, my background is in the medium and heavy duty trucking business, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, securing the load is part of, when you're a commercial driver, let me rephrase this. If you're driving a vehicle, you are responsible for your load. It doesn't matter whether you're a commercial vehicle driver or you're a homeowner taking things back from Home Depot. You are responsible for your load. So technically you're liable for that load as well, meaning if somebody gets hurt, you are responsible, right?
And that's a great point, because a lot of times you'll see people going down the highway with, maybe 8 suitcases or something. It doesn't have to be building materials. You have 8 suitcases, they're going on vacation, piled on top of a car in some kind of lousy little netting or something.
Right, exactly.
That's extremely dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. And I always like to tell everybody's got a story. I've got a quick story. So I'm driving down one of our local interstates that happen to be Georgia 400, and this guy's moving in front of me. I can tell because he's got a mattress and a desk and all this stuff. Well, what pops off his car? This is 2 cars ahead of me. What pops off his car? I see it's a skateboard. Pops off the car, pops up, hits the road, bounces up into the air, hits the car's windshield in front of me, right? pounds almost knocked the windshield out of the car. That thing bounces off, comes up. I swerve into the other lane to not get hit by this skateboard. It hits in the median and goes screaming off into the woods, right? Well, in the meantime, this person ahead of me is pulled off, and as I drive by, I see their windshield is wrecked, right? So that's, $200 or $300 worth of damage. And the guy who the skateboard, he kept on going. He didn't even know he lost his skateboard. Somewhere Junior would have been going, "Oh, where'd my skateboard go?" Well, your skateboard almost killed somebody, is what happened. It almost killed, a whole family full of people. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how many people were in the car, but I did see it. So, because of my background in the trucking business, I thought let's discuss this, because we see this all the time. We happen to see it at Home Depot a lot, right? And so we wanted to talk about what when we talk about a load, what are we talking about? And I'm not going to get too in depth, but I do want people to understand. So, a load, number one, there's three things about it. There's volume, weight, and then there's also wind resistance, right? And so these are things. And also, does this load adversely affect how your vehicle handles or your vision? Or there's a bunch of things that we want to talk about. So we're just going to dive into this. I wanted to tell people your vehicle, and it doesn't matter what vehicle you have, it has a weight limit, right? So we're going to talk about volume and weight first. But all vehicles have what's called a gross vehicle weight rating, and I don't want to get into the math of it, because I could tell you all how to do it, but you don't really need to know. But somewhere you have a maximum payload that your vehicle can carry, right, John? Do you know what it is in your SUV by chance?
Offhand, I don't. I know it's on. Usually it's on the. I think it's on the door sticker, right?
It's on the door sticker. Yep. And how if you want to do the quick math, you take that weight. That's what the vehicle can weigh all up. All up means driver, fuel, load, everything all up.
Yeah.
And you subtract out the weight of what the vehicle weighs without the load on it, right? So basically, if your gross vehicle weight rating is 5,000 and you've got the vehicle and the fuel and the driver and all that stuff weighs 2,500 pounds, you've got a 2,500 pound payload. Okay. In trucks, right? So in pickup trucks, they talk half-ton truck, they talk three-quarter-ton truck, they talk one-ton truck. Those are kind of misnomers, okay? Because in most cases, a half-ton pickup truck can carry around 2,000 pounds or 1 ton worth of material, right? 2,000 pounds is 1 ton. So those designations don't necessarily mean all that much as far as 1 ton, three-quarter ton, and half-ton. What those talk about mostly is about axles and stuff like that. So I want to quickly talk about equipment, right? So what can happen in your vehicle? So number one, your axles can break, your tires can blow, or your car can get crushed if you put too much weight on it, right? Sounds simple, but it's true, right? I mean, we know this. I've actually broken the axles off of a vehicle, so I can tell you that it does happen. It happened to be a Ford Ranger many, many years ago. I just thought of that, John. You know that? I actually spun an axle off a truck. I would say it was overloaded. So these are lessons learned. But let's talk about volume. So volume is the total area that you make up. Have you ever seen anybody going down the road with insulation that's in the front seat, the back of the truck, and on top? Well,
oh yeah, I mean it's absolutely, and that was in the case that I had my SUV fully loaded the other day. When I was doing this gutter job, and I had to go buy, that big plastic flexible landscaping pipe.
Landscape pipe, right? It's a great example. John, does that weigh anything? Does it weigh anything?
It weighs nothing.
Nothing, but
it takes up a lot of volume. And I had everything in my car. I'm packed to the gills, and so I'm like, well, where am I going to put this? Well,
So where did you put it?
Yeah, I must have looked kind of funny, going down the street with all this black pipe. Like, what the hell is that? Going down the street. But I think as we're talking about this, a lot of people that are doing these things just don't. They don't do this stuff for a living, and right. I know that because they're just doing it like as a one-off every once in a while.
Yep.
And so what you're talking about here is very important for people to be cognizant of. When you do this.
Right. Like how much stuff do you think you can actually put in? Another thing is base dimensions, and you and I talked about this before the show, but if you're buying a 4x8 sheet of plywood, right, which really doesn't weigh that much, but will it fit in your vehicle? if you want to put it inside. And we'll get into the reasons to put it. I mean, the reasons to put it inside versus outside are kind of self-evident, but they're not, right? If you tie it to the top, it becomes a giant sail. And we'll get into that. That's wind resistance. And that's some of the most, I personally think some of the most dangerous stuff I see in driving down the road is when people they tie these big, and you've got a great story, and we're going to get to that. We're getting to your story. So, but we're back on volume. So understand volume, don't buy too much stuff and you don't have enough room to put it in, I'm reminded, John, remember when we bought the washer when you were at that job and you said, how the hell are you going to get that in your truck? And did I get it in?
Yeah, you did. I don't know how you did it. I mean, I don't know how that happened.
I have an incredible ability to see and make, and I have a visual sense. It's a long story, but I have a visual sense that can judge volume really, really well. Anyway, so that's the first part. So volume, make sure you don't buy too much stuff, right? You got to have a place to put it to get it to wherever you're going. Second thing is weights, and weights are also weights and balances. So where you put the weight matters, right? So
that's right.
We wanted to talk, we were talking, generally weight is when you buy things like concrete is a great example. So you buy concrete. Is it heavy?
Yes.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's 80 pounds.
Absolutely.
A bag, right?
And to that point, so now we're talking about something that doesn't take up, bags of concrete. They might not take up that much volume, but boy, they add a lot of weight.
A lot of weight
so
fast.
For the homeowner out there that just needs to, go out and buy, six bags of concrete, or something like that. That adds a lot of weight to your car.
That's a lot of weight. That's right. 10 bags of concrete, 800 pounds, right?
And if you, right.
Or 600 if you buy 60-pound bags, but it's 600 pounds, right?
Right. And if you have a small car, and I just, every time I'm at Home Depot, I'm always amazed at what people jam inside their car. And, they have little cars, and they're loading them up like they're trucks. And I will tell you, this concrete, your weight and balance here, and I'll let you get the discussion, is that, if you're not careful and you don't do this all the time, that's a whole different car now.
Oh, completely. Right. Yeah, it's going to handle differently, right?
The stopping distance, everything. I mean, people, you really, I see some really dangerous things going on.
We've all seen the pickup truck that looks like it's about ready to do a wheelie.
Yeah.
Right? If you're out there and you haven't seen that, just go to a Home Depot on a Saturday and go down in the contractor section and watch them load concrete, right? These guys go and they get a pallet of concrete, right? And for your information, a pallet of concrete weighs about 2,500 pounds, okay? And they'll stick that in the back of a pickup truck. And of course, they put it, so this has to do with the balances, right? Where you put your weight matters, right?
Absolutely.
It matters. So it all has to do with, it's called moment. And John, you and I, we've talked about moment before, but we use moment mostly talking about loads, but it's kind of like the teeter-totter thing, right? You don't put your heaviest weights, you don't put them aft of an axle, meaning behind. So in a pickup truck, you don't put it on the tailgate. You put it between the axles. That distributes the load out to both axles, right? And yet, John, we've seen, and I know most of our listeners, if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you go to Menards, if you're out west, if you go to those places, they'll stick that pallet right on, right next to the tailgate, right? And what happens to the front of the truck, John?
Oh man, I'm telling you, you talk. All I can see is the drivability of that thing being all loose, just about to come off the ground.
So here's what people don't understand. Number one, the tires actually they lose the ability to steer the vehicle because you actually take weight off the front of the tires. So your ability to steer goes away. And you think it's not true. If it rains just a slight bit, you've got real problems. I mean, beyond real problems. Like you will not turn that vehicle. So you have that issue. The second thing you have is we had talked about braking issues. You now lose your front brakes because if the wheels don't grab, you've got no brakes, right? And braking, people don't understand about braking that these vehicles, all vehicles across the board, doesn't matter whether you're talking about a tractor trailer from a tractor trailer carrying 150,000 pounds down to a bicycle, okay? They all have brakes that are appropriately sized to the vehicle, okay? And brakes go they don't go bad, but they do what's called fade. And we don't need to get into it, but they get hot and they don't work anymore. That's what happens. And you'll be running down the road with with a heavy load, and you'll pump the brakes and you go, there's nothing there. What's going on? And you won't stop. And it's because the brakes get hot, and it's called brake fade. And anyway, you can look it up and Google it. You'll find out all about it. But it's about stopping. So your weights need to be between the axles as a general rule if you're carrying heavy loads. Even lumber, John. So if you've got if you've got an 8-foot bed, right, and you're carrying 12 feet of lumber, it's just like that teeter-totter. That 4 feet that overhangs the back of the axle, if you've got a lot of lumber on there, you'll pull the front wheels off the ground. Now, not a lot, but
especially pressure-treated lumber.
Yeah, exactly. So it happens, folks. You've got to be. Our goal here is to be that you're cognitive, that you understand what you're getting into.
Because you're right on with the brake fading, and you're driving down the road, and that thing's going to handle different. You won't be able. Your stopping distance is going to be different if you have brake fading, because you put too much.
Brake fade is scary, my friend. It's scary.
Yeah, if you put too much in there, you're at Newton's second law of motion, man. I mean, you're on your own, and force equals mass times acceleration, and you got a deadly situation going on there.
It can be deadly combination. So, like I say, our goal here is just to just have you understand. Be aware of what's going on. So you can't fit it in. You want to stick it on top, right? And you see this, for whatever reason, people love carrying mattresses on top of cars. So, John, every time, and for whatever reason also, they think they're going to hold that mattress with their hand, or they're going to take like some twine and tie it around that mattress, right? So, John, you and I, we're aviation guys, right? We understand. What is a mattress? Isn't it just a great big wing?
It turns into that. It's same way with a piece of plywood on the top. But the difference is a lot of times people putting plywood on the top might do that a lot more than people that just go get mattresses at once or twice in their life. And you see some pretty stupid things going on with that.
Yeah, so let's just talk plywood for 1 second, and then you have to tell your story, and you've got to tell your story because it's truly a classic story. But plywood, we're going to give the simple answer. So you're standing, the wind is blowing 25 miles an hour, and you have a piece of plywood. Do you put that piece of plywood square against the wind? Can you hold it?
There's no way.
There's no way. When you angle it down, what happens, right? I mean, as you push the nose of the piece of plywood down, what happens?
Yeah, you get a little bit more, you want to get that thing, aerodynamic as much as you can.
Right.
You can't, that thing is a lot of sail area. And this is to your mattress thing too, which you'll get to here, but it's the same thing. It's a lot of sail area.
It's sail area. Yeah, it's surface area is what it is, right? So you have all this surface area, and then when you get it down to where it's perpendicular, when the thin edge is in the thing, it slides right through, right? No problem holding that piece of plywood at 25 miles an hour. Okay, how many people drive at 25 miles an hour?
Right, exactly. Right. It doesn't take long before a little bit of wind gets up underneath, coming off your windshield to push that thing up. And now you got the situation.
Yeah,
now you're in the trap.
And so it's how much, if you think about, and we just want you to think about it, right? So if you're going to strap that stuff down, the twine they give you at Home Depot is generally not sufficient, okay, in my opinion. It's generally not sufficient, all right? And that sheet of plywood comes off, and think about it. If you're driving behind somebody and a sheet of plywood comes off, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know, but it's never going to be good, right?
Yeah.
And ladders as well. Ladders as well, same thing. See them all the time, scares the living daylights out of me. And we're not here to scare you. We're just here to make you understand that, some of these things you don't do it, right? That's why if you can put that piece of plywood inside, you're better off because then wind isn't an issue, right, John?
Right.
So, I drive a Nissan NV 2500, and it's a tall one, and we can slide whole sheets of plywood in vertically into my truck, and they fit in, and it's no problem, right? And I do that because I like that. Plus, it's too tall to stick anything on top. So wind resistance is key. But John, so tell us. So you used to live in Miami, right? And you've told me this story. And I mean, I never laughed. I've never laughed so hard.
Speaking of aviation, I was just getting off a shift, working at the airline, and we all jumped in our cars. And, it was punch out time, and we're driving up 95, and I was following a guy. I'm following a very small, those old trucks, the little ones.
Little ones, right?
And sure enough, the guy had a mattress in the back. Now it was a mattress. It was a mattress that leaned up against the cab. Okay, if you're following me here. So the back end of the mattress was on the tailgate. The top end of the mattress was over the top of the cab. If you're following me here.
Got it.
And so to boot, there's a guy holding the mattress in the back of the truck, in the bed of the truck, on top of the mattress.
So he's sitting on top of the mattress in the back of the truck.
He's laying, sprawled out across the mattress.
Was he catching a snooze stomach. Or what? Was he sleeping?
It was like that, yeah. And he thinks that he's going to hold that down. Well, 95, right? I mean, we're, I-95, it's a major road.
It's a super speedway. That's what you're saying.
And everybody's going, 80 miles an hour. And wouldn't you know that here comes, the wind. He gets up just enough speed that the wind takes this thing. It lifts up the mattress off the top of the cab with this guy holding onto the mattress, and floats him right out of the truck.
Is this like a magic carpet ride?
Yeah, and it's luckily, really, really lucky for him they were in the right-hand lane, right next to nothing really. There was no guardrail, there was no nothing, and he went down the ravine. He was just, I couldn't believe it. He could have blown into traffic, which that would have been the end of it, And, so I was there, and I was surrounded by a bunch of cars, and I just kept going. And one of the guys that I worked with was way behind me. He pulled over to help these people, and this guy came, they thought he was dead, obviously. And he comes clawing his way up the ravine, and they see one bloody knuckle after another coming up, and they had to take him to the hospital. But, I can't think of anything more stupid than what I saw that day.
Yeah, and so the breakdown was is he flew that thing into the ravine, right? And it landed like normal. He just happened to drag his knuckles on the ground, right? That's what happened.
He was pretty messed up.
Plus, he probably needed new shorts, but that's a whole different story.
I could not believe how lucky he was that he didn't blow into the traffic. But to this point, it's just, you see these kind of things, how ridiculous people can be, with things like that. It was just confounding how they did this.
So back to our point, it's just, understand what you're doing when you tie this stuff down. One of the other things that I think this is probably the last bit of advice is when you do load up stuff, make sure you can actually see around, that your mirrors aren't blocked, that you don't have, even if you put things in your car. I'm really bad to do this, John. I'll put things in the front seat and I block my rearview mirror on the right-hand side. This never goes well for me. I end up having to take and push the things down so I can see the rearview mirror, right? But if you're carrying more of particularly a high volume load, and you happen to load up in the back, and you're used to driving just with your rearview mirror that's up in the window, be aware you need to be looking at your mirrors on the doors, because you've got to be able to see behind you and what's going on around you, right? So just be aware of that, and be aware of all of these things. Quick conversation about trailers. So if you own a trailer, all of the things I said about vehicles are exactly the same as with a trailer. So trailers all have weight ratings, right? So a trailer all trailers are not made the same. Some have heavier axles than others. Some are built more sturdily and robustly than others. And they have a weight rating as well. And you can always carry more weight on a trailer than you can on the vehicle itself. And that has to do with a whole bunch of physics equations and things like that we don't need to get into. But you can always pull more than you can actually load on the vehicle, which is why, for example, tractor trailers are all just that. They're trailers, right? So they pull behind. And again, we don't need to get into the physics of it. But I will tell you this. If you have a small trailer, make sure you understand how much weight, what the gross weight rating is. How much can that thing actually carry? Because to give you the synopsis, what happens is that you'll get a failure in your weakest part, right? And your weakest part, in most cases, both on a vehicle and in a trailer, are your tires. In almost all cases, that's your weakest failure point. And if you're driving old tires, folks, that have dry rot on your trailer because you only drive your trailer every once in a while,
yeah,
don't expect to put a whole lot of heavy weight on there and expect it to last too long, right? Because they will break.
And that goes for your car too.
Same thing with your car. Yep.
Yeah, and I think I just say, folks, just be very cognizant of how you're doing these kind of things, and use the heavy duty ropes or
straps,
ropes and straps that are appropriate for the job. Yep. I mean, don't try to cut corners on this. It's not worth it. And over the course of my life, I've seen some really ridiculous things going on. Larry, we don't have to talk about canoes flying off of our cars.
I was just going to say we need to talk about canoes. But
I mean, if we need more stories like that, where the canoe, you stop and you're like, there goes the canoe keeps going.
There goes the canoe, and the water's not even close.
Yeah, who's paddling that thing?
Yeah, who's paddling?
And
that thing?
But you just see all kinds of things, and it's just, I'm very cognizant of it.
Yeah, me too.
Every time I put anything on top of my car, and I hope everybody else is, I just, I cringe when I see, I don't know if there's a law of how many ladders you can put on top of a white van, but I don't know if there is one, because, you see
but
these
there
guys
should
going
be.
Around with, there should be. And it's like, man, I cannot believe that's going down the road.
Yeah. So that, I think that's, do we have anything else to say about securing your load, John?
No, I think it's just, just be careful. Just have your wits about you. Use common sense, and just know that your car is gonna handle different. And just know that it can be a very dangerous situation if you're not doing this correctly. So I think that's it, Larry.
John, once again, I was out last night. I'm in the yard, and here comes this spaceship, and it's towing another spaceship, right? So they come down and they land, and what did we do?
We took it apart, man. And did it have a Class 3 hitch?
I don't remember, but I now have two in my yard that are broken down and don't run, and I think I need some help. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.